carriers, you guys need to go sit down in a freaking room together for a week, 2 weeks, hash this out, and then everybody come back out together and say, hey, this is what we're all going to do.
In a lot of cases, it's not just that the carriers want to grow, they have to grow at a manageable rate because they don't have enough doctors.
We're going down the wrong path. And I think we need to rethink some of the things that is going on. And if that means lowering agent compensation overall, then that's what you do.
Hey guys, Kurt Graham back again with Inside EIP. Got Jagger again here today, and we're going to be talking about something that I've been seeing pop up in different insurance agent forums and different groups and stuff, where people are talking about the fact that pretty much all PDP carriers are no longer paying compensation, and what are some options that they can do around it. I've seen ideas being thrown out like, hey, we're going to be able to just, charge fees. Actually, a letter came out from the insurance commissioner in New Hampshire that specifically addressed this. And it's opened up some interesting conversations, especially around what is legal, what are we allowed to do. Based on, some of my research, federally, it looks like this is not an option. Jagger, I mean, what are your thoughts on this? I know we've discussed it in the past is there a way that we can charge for consultations? Is it worth it? What's the right strategy to help our customers?
I think you can get away with it in certain states from what I'm seeing. I think it's more of a state problem than it is from a national perspective. I think where agents and agencies are going the wrong way with this, though. We need to go back after the carriers. We need to go back to the carriers and get them to start compensating us for the business that we're writing. This started with WellCare a few years ago with making the zero premium, or making not just a zero premium PDP plan, which is still crazy that they're able to do that. But the part of the reason why they are able to do that is because of not compensating the agents, but them not paying any kind of commissions and cutting all of our renewals. I mean, we've lost millions of dollars from that with WellCare. But I think we need to talk about what we need to do instead of kind of charging our clients for the fee for service. I've talked to a lot of some very big names in the industry, a lot of people that are very well known in the industry, and I've always told them I'm against it. I think there's other ways of also making more money with selling ancillary and doing wealth and selling other products and stuff like that. And that's what we've done. Have we lost some money because of it? Absolutely. But, does business go on? Yeah, it absolutely does. But I do think we need to start, really, talking to the DOIs and stuff like that to get these carriers to start compensating us again.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is they want to have objective opinions about the plans and us not steering people into plans. But when there's all over the place in terms of who's paying, who's not paying, it's going to be one of those things. And frankly, it's not free for us to do these, PDP consultations. It takes time. It takes time. It takes some expertise.
More time to do that than it does an actual core MedSup or Medicare Advantage enrollment.
Yeah, and you can be way wrong with a client with just one little error. I was looking at one the other day for a client, and his drugs were all out of whack, and it was like, why is it so much more expensive? And it was a capsule versus a tablet, right? On one of his prescription drugs. And if it was a tablet, it was going to be zero copayment, a generic no cost drug. But because it was a tablet, it was like $600 a month. And that was because he had put his drugs in and called me up and said, hey, what's going on? None of the plans cover my prescriptions.
Yeah.
And I had to look through it as one of those things that, because I've had experience with that, I was able to say, hey, actually it looks like you put everything in right, but it was just that cap versus tablet in the name. And that was throwing everything off. And so, just letting the clients do it on their own. Sure. they're going to do it, but there's going to be a lot of people that are going to make mistakes. And I think that's also going to, talking about the carriers and how we need to go back to them and say, hey, we should be getting compensated for this. I think it's going to cause trouble with having clients enroll in plans on their own, wrong plan, wrong cost. Then they're going to get complaints, and it's going to go, they're going to complain to Medicare, and it's going to be a CTM, but there's going to be no agent.
Yeah.
That was responsible.
CTM still hurt it either which way, whether there's an agent tied to it or not with these insurance carriers. And you're 100% right. They're going to see far more CTMs when it's non-agent assisted versus, because a lot of agents, to your point, are just now like, hey, I'm not getting compensated for this. It's very time consuming. Hey, Mrs. Jones, go ahead and go to Medicare.gov, right? Go to directly to Medicare.gov, input your medications, find the most affordable one, and enroll in it. I mean, that's not how it should be, Kurt. It shouldn't be like that.
It's one of those things where I think all the insurance companies and all the big groups out there, it is kind of the white whale, the Moby Dick of the sales world is how do I completely make it a consumer driven enrollment? Because then, yes, you save on the agent cost and everything along those lines. But nobody's really been able to accomplish it in a way that has been cost effective and then not bite them in the butt for these other issues because the agents weren't there to actually explain it and be the experts. No matter what people think, oh yes, it's, relatively easy to get your insurance license and all this stuff, but ultimately there are experts. We do have a extreme value. And I think that's a part of the conversation, like you were saying, is going to the DOIs, going to our carrier partners and saying, hey, I know you guys, there's other things that are driving some of this. It's not just a greed thing. Because I truly don't believe the carriers are doing this just purely out of a sense of greed.
No,
right.
They're doing it to stay competitive, like WellCare, for example. How's WellCare able to still keep a $0 PDP plan when everybody said, the sky was falling with PDPs 3 years ago and everything else? How's WellCare been able to do it? I can guarantee you it has a lot to do with the not compensating the agents, and then other large carriers that are doing it, UHC and Aetna and Cigna and Humana, any of the, call it the core MA carriers and PDP carriers that are out there. Well, they're losing market share and they see another carrier that's doing it. And Kurt, we talked about it before this video, but we understand why they're doing it, right? Carriers, we understand why you're doing this. However, I think long term, it's not the right thing for the client, right? And it's not because we're not getting compensated for it and everything else. It's because it's not in the best interest of the client. And, you go back to looking at some of these surveys, everybody always wondered why there's not a lot of direct consumer business. And what do I mean by direct consumer business? People that are actually going on the internet and self-enrolling without an agent, right? They still want to talk to agents. They still need to talk to agents, right? And then now all of a sudden you're cutting this compensation out. Guess what ends up happening? It's not good for the client. Right. And that's what this really boils down to. So, does that mean that all these carriers, if you want to offer PDPs, you need to compensate the agents? Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what it should be. That's how the law, I thought, was written. I haven't looked enough into it. Now I can, there's been a couple DOI letters that have came out over the past couple of weeks. I think Idaho, Delaware are two. I know there's a lot more that a lot of agents are pushing towards, but it specifically says in those letters, right? You're not able to not offer a plan and then not compensate an agent for that, right? And I think there's going to be more DOIs that get involved. And the letters are actually very good from the DOIs. At the end of the day, guess what happens? I hate to say it. I'm not going to say our agents do or don't do it because I'm not on every single call and everything else. I can guarantee you we don't tell them to do this, but do you think there's not steering of one carrier over another carrier because of the fact that they're going to get compensated for it?
Well, it's a lot of, we need the regulations, but I think also there is the regulatory pressures that are causing some of this. Just a few years ago, there were 30, 40 different PDP options for people, and now it's 5, 6 PDP options. I think some of the, the things that are coming out of the DOIs is they're seeing that actually some of their biggest carriers in the States are pulling out, and now there's only maybe 2 or 3 different MA plans available, and maybe only one that's paying compensation. And I think that's what we're seeing, and you are seeing it from the smaller states, right? The Idahos, the New Hampshires of the world, because they are a little bit smaller of a market, and so then the carriers are just going. There were only a couple carriers there in the first place, and one was a regional carrier that was really great and had a lot of market share, and then with some of the pressures that have happened, they've lost their ability to offer the plan in the state. And now where are all those people going to go? And so it is definitely something that we need a little bit of balance coming from, the carriers, the
government in general. I mean, why have the plans reduced so significantly over the past, call it 2 to 4 years, right? It's the new laws that got to implement it, right? New laws got implemented. Everybody thought they were, and carriers are in this business to make money, just like Elite Insurance Partners is. We're in this business to help as many people as we can. In return, we make money off of it, right? That's how I started the company, and I will always go in that direction. But at the end of the day, like, the insurance carriers have to make money, and unfortunately, the government has tied their hands in making money and being profitable and stuff. Now, competition has become another thing. Like I said, the zero premium WellCare plan, right? How are they making money off of that? Well, we know, and I mean, for those that don't know, and I'll say it. I mean, they're flipping these people into Medicare Advantage at that point, right? They're calling their standalone PDPs, and then flipping it into Medicare Advantage, which in return, right, makes them more money on the MA side of it. That's ultimately what they're doing. But it's driving competition. And then the only way that you can keep premiums low, benefits good, right, is if you cut something out. And I think that's where a lot of these carriers are doing it, and it's just not good for the industry.
Ultimately, it is going to cause more trouble. The agents do have a strong play and make things, add value to the market. It's not one of those things that I think, the clients can completely handle on their own. Mm-hmm. Not saying, an average client can't do it. But I think it is super important. I mean, as an agency, if Jagger, you've been in this business, you got your agency, you've got a bunch of agents that work for you. What would you say to like just the onesie two, the smaller shops? Maybe a way for them to stand out would be do the PDPs, and because there's so many people that are looking at charging fees, maybe not offering them. You think that's a good idea for those smaller shops out there? Is, hey, this is how we're going to stand out, be above, or is it too much time and risk? Because there is still the risk of you're offering that advice. It is tied to your license.
Yeah.
How do you think?
I think the risk is not greater than the reward, on it. Ultimately, I think there's other things you can do in your business, just like we have, right? Not a lot of people have a 66% attach rate, to their core MedSup and Medicare Advantage plans, right? Not a lot of people are doing life insurance to their Medicare clients, or doing wealth to their Medicare clients. There's other ways to make money and still help out with the PDPs. Am I frustrated? Am I pissed off that these carriers are cutting us out on that side of it? Yeah. And I've said it in other videos. That's why we're diversifying in other lines of business. We're doing life insurance now because Medicare is scaring the shit out of me. And, it's ultimately, it's because of things that have gone on within the government, and, compensation's lowered and so on and so forth. But these carriers now are starting to follow suit with one another. One does it, the next carrier does it and stuff. So carrier partners, this is stuff that's, really being talked about in the industry as well. And, people are jumping ship, and going to other lines of business and stuff. So to answer your question directly, no, I don't think the fee for service thing should exist. I don't think it should legally be done anyways. I don't think it's worth it. All you need is one whistleblower to call you out. Definitely these large groups, right? And then all of a sudden you got a 5, 10, 20, $30 million lawsuit that's coming down the line. And what? Yeah, you gain an extra $100,000 or something like that. I don't think it's worth it. It's not something that we're even remotely considering in-house here.
I think for what most of the time, what people need to understand from the carrier point of view, for groups like us, a PDP was a break even on the agent's time. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
ultimately, it wasn't a moneymaker, but it was enough to be able to justify the extra time that it goes into those PDPs, and then being able to do those reviews. And I mean, carriers, we get it. The $2,000 cap on cost,
Mhm.
that didn't magically happen, right? It didn't go from a 2,000, down to a $2,000 cap when we had, you had the donut hole, then you had a $6,000, true max out of pocket, and now it's all the way down to 2,000. There is no donut hole anymore. We know where all that money is coming from, and it's coming from the carrier. So they do have a lot of pressure on that side of things. So it is something to deal with for sure. Now on the MA side of the market, where we are seeing some of these areas of the country where it is a cutback amount of options. I know one of the things that we discussed in our last video is actually making that transition for a lot of our clients and going, you know what, there aren't very many good MA options for you this year.
Yep.
Have we thought about those high deductible G plans, or going back to a traditional full Medicare supplement? And I think our agents have done a good job of making that transition and doing that pitch, because there are just parts of the country where MA may not be feasible for a client any longer,
Yeah.
right?
It's
Just
not
too
feasible for the carrier to make profit, right? It's not, feasible for the client from a benefit perspective, to do it. We're seeing that throughout, but for them to, just out of nowhere, just come in end of the year, middle of the year, first quarter of the year and say, oh, and by the way, we're just going to now pull this from Sunfire or whatever enrollment platform that you're using, right? And the only way that you could potentially write this would be via paper, which in some cases they're not even allow paper. They just say, hey, we don't want any more agents writing any more business on this PPO plan or this HMO plan or in this given state or this given county. That should go into the annual planning, right? That should go into like, hey, if you want to stop offering a plan in 2026, that's fine. Don't offer the plan in 2026, but it shouldn't be available on Medicare.gov. It shouldn't be available anywhere. It just does not make the agents look good when we're trying to do what's in the best interest of the client. And then it again, steering comes into play, and it's not good for this industry. It's not good for this industry, hands down. And I'm seeing it firsthand with we were over 3,000 Medicare apps last month, right? And it's not good. It's not a good look.
Yeah, ultimately it's cutting down on the options for the clients. But with all the pressures that we've seen in the market, it's the little regional guys too are having trouble. And it's one of those, you want more competition in the market. How do you get it? And it's a hard problem that, I don't know, CMS needs to look at, Congress needs to look at, because ultimately, I mean, we are, as Medicare agents and agencies, our biggest partner is the federal government,
Yeah.
right? If you're selling Medicare Advantage, that's ultimately who's the one driving the ship. Over half of all Medicare beneficiaries are now on an MA plan. Are we going to see that, kind of start to change and go back down to where it's less than half of all Medicare beneficiaries? I don't know. I think MA has just become very, very popular. There's been very good plans. Maybe what the carriers need to do is what they've traditionally done in the past, which is, hey, on those PPO plans, I mean, if you look on average, I think it's something like 80+% of people are on a zero premium MA plan.
Right.
Maybe that's not the case anymore. Maybe it's going back, raising a monthly premium, having higher co-payments at the specialist. Everybody talks about the prior authorization and all of those things. Well, what if you just add cost back into the plan? Then people are going to automatically choose to go a different route.
I
They're
mean,
not.
I hadn't even thought about that. I mean, I'm glad we're talking about it, because we've always wondered why the med sub carriers wanted to get rid of plan F and go to plan G and or plan N. Well, why? Because there's cost sharing involved.
Yeah.
When plan F was available, right? And you didn't have to pay $1 to go to the doctor or go to the hospital. Yeah, you have a higher monthly premium, not significantly higher than a plan G or a plan A.
Usually the math just worked out. It was the deductible divided by 12.
That's it, right? I mean, it was an extra $10, $15 a month, ultimately. But what it really boiled down to is utilization with Plan F was significantly higher with a Plan F or a Plan G, or with the Plan F more than a Plan G back in the day prior to 2020, right? Why? Because anytime they went, it was free, right? They didn't have copays, they didn't have co-insurance. That's the reason why they got rid of, Plan C, Plan F, first day, first dollar coverage. They went to Plan G, utilization went down. Why do carriers push more to Plan N? Because there are the $20, $50 co-payments that are there. There's more cost sharing involved to the client, right? So in return, they don't just go for no reason, right? You got to remember, most of these clients are retired. Some of these clients don't have significant others. They passed or, whatever ended up happening at that point. So they just want to get the hell out of the house. And they're like, fuck it, I'll go see a, doctor or specialist just to get out of the house, right? That slowed down with Plan G and Plan N. So to your point, that's the exact same thing that's happening on the MA front.
And I think there's some people out there that are going to think that we're exaggerating. That's not an exaggeration at all about how some of our clients are. I know, as an agent who's had clients for, the past 15 years, some of them just want to call you to talk.
Yeah.
And that's a part of the job, right? And it's at times it's sad, and you do what you can to be there for them. But they do treat going to the doctor that way. I think another thing is, I have clients in the past that would go see the cardiologist as their primary care doctor. Well, that doesn't make sense economically, and it doesn't make sense medically for that person, because the cardiologist, they might have been a great student, and that's why they were able to be, some people think that just because they were a specialist, they were a better student, better doctor. But the primary care doctor has a different view of your overall health and how to handle things.
Right.
And so there is actually a different role for those people. And so adding that different level of cost sharing will make utilization kind of level out, because we are seeing, high loss ratios on both the MA and on the med side of things. And the only thing that's going to solve that is, I think, more cost sharing, unfortunately, for the clients.
Yeah.
But it's like, I use this analogy before. I was like, if I was able to buy a grocery card and, for an extra $100 a month, it meant I could get whatever groceries I wanted. I could go get steak every time at the store. Well, I'm not going to look at the chicken, right? I'm not looking at Czech Cola. I'm only buying Coca-Cola, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's kind of a little bit of what we've got on the Medicare side of things. I mean,
there's no doubt about it. You're hitting it right on the head. And I can't believe I've never put two and two together on that side of it. These zero premium plans and the $0 copays, to the primary care and to the specialists and that type of stuff is 100% driving higher utilization, which in return is, making less money. You put in those back to the $40, $50 a month, even if it's a zero premium, but you got higher co-payments to go to the primary care and or a specialist and stuff. They're not thinking about the hospitalization. They're not thinking about ending up in the hospital days 1 through 3, 1 through 5, right? Whatever else, because those have pretty much been, that's the biggest cost, is there. And those have stayed pretty true on Medicare Advantage, the last 12, 13 years that I've owned my own company, right? But what has gone are the zero premiums, right? The $0 copays for your primary, $0 for your specialist, and that type of stuff, which is going to drive utilization up, because these people just aren't thinking twice about having to go whenever they want to go.
All the different tests at a zero copayment as well. Yeah.
And I'd love to say our seniors are getting healthier. They're not. It's not like, hey, all of a sudden, it's great because now our seniors are getting healthier and, they're getting the coverage that they need. They have great coverage. Now, I love Medicare, Medicare Advantage, Medicare supplements. Like, I love the coverage. The coverage is great, but it's not like, they're getting healthier. right? That's not what we're seeing. There's more and more medications. If you look at statistics and you look over the past 15 years, there's more and more medications that are given out to seniors and everything else like that. So now if all of a sudden America is getting healthier and our senior population is getting healthier, I could then be more of an advocate for that, but that's not what's happening, right? That's not what's happening.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're somebody that deals with a lot of people turning 65, I mean, how surprised are most people turning 65 when you tell them that their Part B premium is X amount, and then they don't have anything else in terms of cost, and they were used to paying $600-700 on their employer plan a month. There's room there for a lot of people, if they want a more premium plan that is used to coming off of their employer plan. So I think there's a lot of things that can be done. But I do think what you said about steering, that's something it just like the plan benefits can't change throughout the course of the year. Going to the hospital can't go from $250 for the first 5 days to $500 halfway through the year because the plan's having trouble. I think the same should probably be the way that they handle agent compensation as well. Is it's a part of the plan benefit. We are going to be able to offer this plan with these benefits, including compensation for the agents year round. And that's the way it is. Because then there is no reason to steer. Yeah. It is purely objective. That's the whole idea. And if that's the case, then it gets rid of that issue. It gets rid of people being concerned about wanting to charge for a PDP consultation or something along those lines. And it really does go back to just being objective about what's available in the area. Hey, here's the plans. Here's what you should choose. Doesn't matter to me as the agent. I get compensated all the same. And so I can give you that, completely non-biased advice. And I think that's
where did that go? 8 years ago, getting into Medicare Advantage and just, doing a little bit, we've been dominantly a Med Sup, as many of you guys know, but they always had to pay the exact same across the 300, 600, right? And then, you had your admin and stuff like that, that you could pay up to, X amount more dollars, but where did that go? Or why all of a sudden did that stop? Or where did, I thought that was a law, right? That was put into play, where you had to do that type of stuff. So where did that go?
It makes me think about the final rule in 2024 and how it was like this big deal about steering, and they were talking about admin dollars and copay. And then now here we are just a couple years later, and it's like, oh, half the plans aren't commissioned, or we've got modified commissions on the different types of plans. How is that not a big focus? We're
seeing it with Idaho, Delaware. Like I said, these DOIs are getting on it, and carriers. Yeah, we've got an amazing relationship with our carrier partners, and we love our carrier partners. But at the end of the day, doing the right thing for the client is what we have to go towards. And I think everything that we're going down the wrong path, and I think we need to rethink some of the things that is going on. And if that means lowering agent compensation overall, right, then that's what you do. But you still have to pay the agents, because this fee for service stuff is bullshit. In my opinion, it's bullshit. And second to that, I understand the carriers have to make money. So what does that mean? We gotta increase the benefit cost of what it used to be, right? The whole zero premium, for a lot of the free benefits are now gone, right? All the free that we've been hearing about the past 3-4 years, the Part B give backs and all that. It seems like we're working back towards that, but we need all the carriers to do that. We need all the carriers to pay compensation to the agents, right? And then in return, profitability is profitability, right? And everything will kind of work itself out. But carriers, you guys need to go sit down in a freaking room together for a week, 2 weeks, hash this out, and then everybody come back out together and say, hey, this is what we're all going to do, right? Or the government needs to get involved and say, hey, this is exactly what you guys are going to do, right? To get back to the same playing field. I like competition, right? I like competition for us. I like competition with carriers. I like, all that type of stuff. But at the end of the day, I think there's just been so much hey, we want more of the market share, so we're going to do this. We want more of the market share, so we're going to do this. Whereas we all need to get back to the same playing field, and, it needs to be governed better for sure.
Well, but I mean, in some cases, it's not that they want more of the market share. It's some cases that everybody pulled out of a market, and now everybody's
stuck.
going into this,
Yeah.
and so then they can't handle it. And so it is, like you said, it's them being able to predict what's going to go on with, the other carriers in the area, and not get absolutely steamrolled by an extra 50,000 more members than they were expecting. And now the network can't hold up. In a lot of cases, it's not just that the carriers want to grow, they have to grow at a manageable rate because they don't have enough doctors. And guess what? If you don't have enough doctors contracted in a given county, and now you picked up an extra 15, 20,000 members, well, they're going to have long wait times to be able to see the doctors. It's going to end up causing a whole bunch of trouble, and that's going to drive their star ratings down. So we do have a little bit of a, kind of, I don't want to say like death spiral of a situation. And so I think maybe that's why this year we've seen such a big, kind of pulling the ripcord on agent compensation.
Mm-hmm.
And so hopefully something happens this year where, like you said, everybody kind of comes together and goes, hey, how do we plan this and make it a more manageable thing as we've continued to grow? We've got to manage this better. I think some of that's coming with, moving away from some PPOs and everything like that, but it's a hard problem to solve. And I don't think we're going to solve it on here, but here's how we feel about it. Is there's gotta be some changes.
Going back to the fee for service on the Part D, what we originally kind of started this conversation about, I think as an agency, individual, 100-man, 200,000 person shop, I talk to people that are 10-man shop. I've talked to groups that are 1,000 agents, that are on the call center side of it. And my answer has always been the same when we were talking about this 2 or 3 years ago when WellCare pulled their shit that they pulled, right? Was I don't think it's the right thing to do. I think there's other areas to make money, in the business, and fine tuning ancillary and life insurance and wealth and, just doing better for your core plan, whether that be a MedSup or that be a Medicare Advantage, right? To get more persistency, out of it too, right? Instead of just being, looking for a 2-3 year persistency, let's shoot for that 5, 6, 7 years where we are, on most of our MedSup and Medicare Advantage, and just do the right thing for the client. It all ends up working out at the end of the day. Have we lost a little bit? But yes, we have. But Kurt, we don't even cover our costs with doing PDPs, right? We don't even cover our costs with the time that it takes to do it, but we've always done it as a service. So, if you're a group that needs help with the ancillary side of it, you want to write more MedSup, or you want to write more Medicare Advantage, or you want to learn how to get into life insurance or even wealth, we're doing kind of all lines now in the Medicare life and wealth. Now, wealth is off of our Medicare and our life insurance clients. We've got a Medicare team, we've got a life insurance team, and we generate wealth leads off of those, and it's very successful. We're loving all the numbers that we're seeing. But if you're a group that is larger, we're only working with groups that have a sustained business, that have a number of agents. If you want to talk to us, you can reach out to us at brokerage@teameip.com. Get me on social media, get Kurt on social media. We can set up a meeting, have you talk to us, and maybe offer you to come to the office, check it out. But we'd love to have some conversations with you and see how we can possibly help out.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better.
Thank you all.